This is the story of an orphan boy who had nothing but a kind heart. Fate brought him in front of a wounded lion, and at that moment he chose mercy as the reason for running away, and this moment became the reason for changing his destiny. He found a peace that he did not even know about, and this is where the story begins. Zahran was such an orphan child that since he opened his eyes, he did not remember his father's face at all and never heard his voice. He was told that his father had died in a mysterious accident and that the overturned car had given him no chance of survival. At that time, Zahran did not understand the meaning of death. But when he grew up, he felt the lack of something he did not even know the name of. A few months had passed when his mother fell ill. She would always hold her son to her chest as if she were saying goodbye to him, without saying anything. Day by day, she grew weaker, and one winter night, she passed away, leaving her innocent child stranded in this cruel world. That night, Zahran cried so much that he could not sleep. People took him to his uncle's house. His little heart was full of hope. He knew that. He lay on the ground, gazing at the sky through a broken window. The thought in his heart was, why wasn't I made like everyone else? The whole world seemed to be against him. Despite all this, he never hated anyone. And yet his heart remained pure for everyone. He found his only solace among the animals. He talked to the goats as if they understood him. He stroked their heads affectionately. When one of them got sick, he would sit by them for hours, hand-feeding them grass and taking care of them. He saw himself in these animals. Zahran did not know that this life of his and these difficult days were preparation for a great end. He did not know that fate had a test in store for him that would change everything, and that this nameless orphan would one day become a story that would be on everyone's lips. Zahran grew up a little, but his innocence could not grow with him. Every day she struggled under the burden of work and the hardships of home. Now he was not just a child who obeyed the rules, but had become a ready name for every mistake, and for every shortcoming or problem, everyone's eyes were on him. He began to feel that the house was becoming a burden on him day by day, until its atmosphere became a burden on his chest. That night, everything in the house seemed different. Whispers were on everyone's tongues, faces were yellow, and voices were sharp. Zahran saw that his aunt was restlessly searching here and there in the house. He hoped that his uncle would take care of him and relieve all his sufferings. But he soon learned that some hearts did not know the meaning of mercy. Then one day he felt as if he were a stranger in this house, a burden that no one wanted to bear. There was no special place for him in this house. He would sleep wherever he felt like sleeping, sometimes near the stable door, sometimes in a corner of the kitchen. If he asked for a blanket, he would be told that the earth is very wide, wherever his heart desires. So if he asked for a blanket in winter, he would be told that men do not feel cold. His day would begin before dawn. He would be checked and woken up and not called by his name, but called an orphan. He would pick up his stick and go out with the goats. The cold would bite his bare feet. When the sun rose, he would be in the fields, and hunger had become his future companion. He was not allowed to return before sunset, no matter how tired or sick he was. If something went wrong in the care of the goats, or if a child was separated from river, he was destined to be beaten. No one asked him what had happened. Only accusations, and his aunt took out all the weight of her anger on him. Before raising her hand, she would beat him with words and make him realize that if it weren't for her, he would be lying on the road at that moment, cleaning the stable, bringing wood from the forest, filling the water trough. There was no permission to play, no time to rest. If he sat down for even a moment, he would be called lazy and a workaholic. In the evening, he would watch his uncle's sons laughing and playing at the table, and would sit at a distance and watch the food, and he was allowed to come closer only when he was ordered to. Sometimes he would go to bed hungry, and sometimes he would get such a small thing that could not even fill a child's stomach. Sometimes opening the box, sometimes closing it, sometimes shaking things. No one asked her anything, but as soon as Bina said something, fear descended in her heart. In the afternoon, she was called to the room. When she went there, she saw that her uncle and his son were already sitting there. The silence was heavy. Then a direct accusation broke it. The money in the box had disappeared. No one said when or how. It was just that the money was not there, and everyone's eyes were fixed on Zahran in an instant. He felt as if the ground had lifted from under his feet. He tried to speak, trying to explain that he had been in the field all day, but no one would let him say a single word. One of the uncle's sons told him with a sarcastic laugh that orphans are the most susceptible to theft because no one questions them. Hearing this, the others laughed. This laughter hurt Zaran more than a beating. His tongue trembled when he swore that he was innocent. He reminded her of how many times he had returned things he had found on the way, what and how he kept protecting the goats honestly. But when the accused is weak, honesty has no value. They neither looked for money nor considered any other possibility. The decision had been made in their hearts long ago. Due to fear and exhaustion, Zaran sat on the ground. Deep words began to ring in his ears. Everyone reminded him that he was alive only because of them, and that they had fed him. He felt ashamed, although he had never asked anyone for anything. He did the most work, but still he was suspicious in everyone's eyes. When evening began to fall, his anger and harshness increased. His uncle stepped forward, grabbed his gray hair, and lifted him up. His eyes were ruthless. He said softly but decisively, "The earth is more kind than you." He opened the door and pushed him out of the house. Without thinking, he closed the door of the house. Zaran stood in the street, unable to understand what had happened to him. He walked and walked for a long time on the narrow road, the wind hitting his worn-out clothes. The night was cold and the wind hitting his worn-out clothes. He walked. The pain was in his feet, but the real pain was in his heart. He did not know where the familiar landmarks had disappeared. The earth changed, and he found himself walking on the edges of the valley, where there were no houses or people. Sand had replaced the path, and the air was dry and harsh. Hunger grew so much that he felt dizzy and his throat was parched with thirst. He sat down near a mound and wrapped his arms around his neck, trying to keep himself warm. For the first time, he felt real fear. The fear that he would get lost somewhere, and no one would recognize him. At that moment, the memory of his mother came to him with complete clarity. He remembered her eyes and her weak voice that had been comforting him before his death. He felt as if she were whispering in his ear, "Be kind, for kindness is never wasted." Zaran asked himself with a faint smile, "How can I be merciful when the world is so cruel to me?" But he held on to these words like a drowning man holding on to the light of salvation. He stood up again and told himself that he would never give up, even if he were alone in this world. He slowly moved deeper into the darkness, and the stars watched him silently. He did not know that this harsh night was writing the beginning of a new destiny, and the mercy he had kept in his heart would return to him one day at a time, when he least expected it. The night was nearing its end. Zaran was walking with staggering steps among the stones. He looked here and there every moment. Exhaustion had overtaken him, and his weak body could no longer bear it, but he had to keep walking. Then suddenly a voice tore through the silence. A deep groan, a painful sound that he had never heard before. Zaran stopped there. The sound came from between the rocks. He was weak but fearsome. He hesitated to move forward. He looked around to see if there was any hiding place or a way to escape. His heart was beating fast, and the sound of his own breathing was echoing in his ears. He thought to himself that perhaps this was my illusion, but the same pain was heard again. He moved forward fearfully, placing one foot on the ground and then the same one on the ground. The moon was beginning to shine, and the moonlight began to fall on the ground. He saw a huge body lying near a rock. As he moved forward, his eyes widened in fear. It was a wounded lion whose body was covered in blood, and an arrow was lodged in its thigh. Zaran was about to turn back and run when he stopped there. He had never seen a lion so close, that too in a wounded state and so angry. He knew that a small mistake from him could take his life. The lion let out a weak roar, but that was enough to shake the ground. Zaran felt that his legs were leaving him, but when his gaze met the lion's eyes, something strange happened. He felt not ferocity in those eyes, but a strange pain, a pain that he himself had been suffering for years. He saw weakness and a loneliness that was similar to his loneliness. At that moment, he remembered how many times he had been injured himself, and no one had reached out to help him. At that moment, a strange conflict arose in his heart. His heart was trembling, saying, "Run away from here," and a call was stopping him from going crazy. But another voice, full of mystery and deep, the vastness of his mother, was reminding him to be compassionate, because compassion is never wasted. Zaran felt that this moment was a test of his humanity. He slowly took a step forward, then another. He raised his hands to show that he was helpless. The lion was looking at him with tired eyes. The lion sometimes growled but did not move. Zahran got so close to him that sweat began to drip from his forehead. Although the night was cold, he extended his trembling hand towards the arrow but stopped for a moment. Then, with a powerful jerk, he grabbed it and pulled it away. The lion let out a loud roar that echoed through the rocks, and Zahran fell to the ground. Zahran was sure that now his death is today, but surprisingly, the lion neither got up nor attacked him. Zahran gathered his courage once again and stood up and saw the blood flowing from the wound. He tore a piece of his worn-out clothes and bandaged the lion's bleeding thigh to stop the bleeding. He was just doing what he knew how to do, just like he used to do with wounded sheep. After that, he took out his small skin and gave the lion a little water from it to drink. The lion took a deep breath. Then the lion calmed down and put his head on the ground and closed his eyes for a few moments. It seemed as if he had understood everything or had surrendered to rest after the pain. Zahran sat there and his heart was beating fast because the danger could return at any time. Then when he felt that the danger was over, he slowly stood up and started to back away, first one step and then another, without showing his back to the lion. He was afraid that the lion might not make a sudden move. When he reached the right distance, he turned and started running towards the rocks. He did not know whether he had escaped death or had himself advanced towards his own end. After going far enough, he stopped and looked back, startled. There was nothing there but darkness. He sat down on the ground. His heart was filled with fear, but there was also a strange comfort, a comfort that he had never felt before. Zahran did not know that what he had done tonight would change his destiny. He did not even know that the kindness done to a lion would return to him as strength and protection. He thought himself lost in the desert, but he had climbed the first step of destiny. Days passed and Zahran began to live near this desert. He began to understand the language of silent nature. Now he began to know where water came from, where birds slept, and which rocks protected him from the cold and wind. During the day, he would collect dry wood and leaves, search for small fruit plants, and think of ways to reduce his hunger. At night, the cold would become even more merciless, and the beasts of the night would be ready to pounce at any moment. But Zahran had not been so afraid before. Now he had understood how to move and how to listen to the silences of Sora and understand their meaning. He often sat for hours, silently looking at the stars and thinking about a purposeless world, a world where people knew and valued him. But he knew that first he had to trust himself. One day when he was carrying dry wood and heading towards his home, he saw a caravan from a distance. He quietly approached it and started looking. There were a few people in the caravan who were protecting their belongings, and everything seemed normal. Suddenly they broke into the caravan, shouting and threatening, and started taking possession of the goods. Zahran's heart trembled, his heartbeat quickened. He understood. He didn't know what to do. He couldn't get close because of fear. But at the same time, a sense of duty for the caravan members arose in his heart. He was watching in the darkness that clubs and swords were waving in the air, and the voices of the robbers were creating a terrible echo in the forest. Suddenly, a terrible and terrifying sound echoed in the forest, so terrifying that it was as if the earth had shaken, and for a moment even, Zahran's body became numb. Suddenly, a huge lion appeared from among the rocks. This was the same lion that Zahran had helped a few days ago. Now he looked much bigger and more powerful than before. His body was shining in the moonlight and his eyes seemed to be tearing through the darkness. Suddenly, the lion rushed towards the robbers with incredible speed. He attacked one, and all the other robbers started running here and there in fear and terror. The ground was shaking from the lion's footsteps, and the air was echoing with his terrifying roar. The robbers escaped from there, screaming for their lives. The caravan remained safe while Zahran stood in amazement, watching the power that was appearing before him. After the robbers fled, the lion came close to Zahran and stood slightly bowed as if he were protecting him. He did not show any aggressiveness towards Zahran, but looked at him with understanding and calmness. Zahran slowly moved forward and placed his hand on his head. The lion did not move at all, but closed his eyes as if accepting this closeness. In the following days, the lion began to live with Zahran. When Zahran gathered wood, the lion would silently watch over him behind the rocks, protecting him from all possible dangers. When Zahran went near the spring to fill up with water, The lion would stay with him so that no one could harm him. This feeling of protection was completely new to Zahran, and his heart was filled with a gratitude that he had never felt before. Zahran's life gradually began to change. The people of the surrounding villages would watch him and be amazed. They would see him going to places that were impossible to reach. And with him was the lion who was his protector. Some children began to tease him, and some men and some elders began to respect him. Everyone knew that this orphan boy was no longer weak. His presence with the lion had changed his personality, making him a dignified and imposing figure. Zahran did not care about fame or the praise of people. The real importance for him was the mercy that his mother had taught him and the loyalty that he felt in his heart for the lion. He spent hours with him. He would sit with the lion, watching him, learning his movements and learning to read his facial expressions. He would go hunting as soon as it got dark. At night, he would sit near the lion and listen to its distant roar. For the first time in years, he felt safe. Every day, Zahran felt that the lion was not just a symbol of hunger and hardship, but a lesson that taught patience, caution, and bravery. And with the lion, he realized that the mercy of his heart was the reason for his strength. Now he was no longer alone. Long nights sometimes brought surprises. Sometimes he would see the sounds of beasts coming towards him, but the lion would bravely push them away. Sometimes he would feel the cries of humans, but he and the lion would take steps wisely. Gradually, Zahran realized that his real strength was not in his weak body, but in his heart, in his mercy and his loyalty. And thus, Zahran was no longer a weak orphan boy, but a boy who had an unparalleled protector. Days later, the story of these events that took place in Zahran was told around him. In the villages of Felgai, people started talking about this orphan boy who walks with a powerful lion and is able to live alone in this desert. His bravery, his strength, and his relationship with the lion became the talk of every tongue. This word gradually reached the village where Zahran once lived with his uncle and his cousins. One clear morning, when Zahran was examining the place near the rocks, he suddenly heard a sound. Zahran turned back and saw his uncle standing there. His eyes were surprised. He was surprised to see the orphan boy who had once been weak. Behind him stood his cousins, who were trying to control their fear. But the fear was clearly visible in their faces. But they were trying to be brave, but their appearance was clear. Zahran stood straight, his head held high, his heart calm, and the look of a grown man in his eyes, although he was still young. The lion sat calmly in front of him. He was watching the whole scene with alertness. The lion did not move towards anyone, but his very presence conveyed a message of strength and awe, as if he were saying, "Be careful, he is under my protection." The uncle slowly moved forward. His steps were heavy and his trembling hands were trying to overcome the shame and regret hidden in his heart. He did not know that this boy, how could he face the one he had considered weak and insignificant? His eyes were fixed on the strength emerging in Zahran, on the calmness that was reflected in his face, and on the respect that had now been built around him in the eyes of people. The cousins began to speak, their voices trembling. They were trying to justify their past, their lies and their accusations. They told everyone that they had wronged Zahran. They never thought that he would find the strength and courage to survive, despite the loneliness and dangers. They kept trying to justify their mistakes, but every word that came out of their mouth was weak and ineffective. Zahran silently looked at their faces. His silence was long. He was examining their faces. Every passing moment made him feel the power he had acquired. There was neither anger nor the desire for revenge in his heart, because he knew that revenge never brings peace and that mercy is stronger than any cruelty. After a long silence, Zahran said with a slight smile and in a calm manner, "The mercy with which I was taken out has brought me back my honor." Silence fell. No one dared to say anything. Zahran's words fell like lightning on their hearts and left a deep impression on their hearts. She understood that now this orphan boy was no longer weak and nameless, but had become a human being who recognized his own strength. He offered to return home, confident that he would now live a life of peace and security. But Zahran replied with a gentle smile, "I have learned that my life is not over and that God does not leave an oppressed person like this, no matter how long the oppression lasts." Zahran looked for a moment at the village where he had grown up, then at the vast Zahran that had supported him and taught him a lesson. He felt freedom for the first time, as if every step he took in Sora had freed him from the chains of the past. He realized that his old life was just a chapter and that now he was entering an important stage of life, a stage full of courage, strength, and dignity. Zahran started a new life near Sora. He built a small hut for himself among the rocks, learned to hunt, and began to manage his own livelihood. He respected the small animals he met on the way, took care of them, fed the birds, and gave water to the thirsty animals. The lion was his. He had become a constant companion and kept reminding him that strength can also come from a soft and compassionate heart. Days passed, and Zahran became an example in the surrounding villages. People started coming to see him, listen to his stories, and learn lessons from him. He was no longer a weak boy, but had become a living example of what mercy and patience can create. Dear friends, I hope you liked this video. If you liked the video, then be sure to express your opinion in the comments. Subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much for watching the video.